So we're moving.
Yeah.
In about 1 week. 1 week from today.
Yeah, the movers could be here in between 8 and noon.
So
August 3rd.
168 hours from right now, we'll be leaving this house where we've lived for the last 9 years.
I know.
It's starting to... It doesn't really even look like our house anymore. All the pictures are down. The ziggurat of boxes has started to rise again.
We don't even have a pantry. We don't have counter space anymore because our entire pantry is on the counters.
Right. Most of the cupboards are empty and bare. I accidentally packed the coffee this morning.
Yes, you did.
Discovered to my horror that while the kettle was going that I had packed the coffee.
I believe the term was, God damn it.
Yes, I believe. one of many choice expressions.
Oh, and then what happened with the cat this morning?
Oh, God, yes. So I got up this morning, I fed the cat. Most of her dishes are packed, so I'm using the little metal one, the unbreakable metal one, and just washing it every morning. Or the kids' plastic bowls, right, don't tell them. And so I feed the cat, a little wet food into the plate, a little sprinkle of dry food on top, so it looks like a tiny little cake. And then go, setting up the coffee, everything like that, and the cat's whining at me, and I'm annoyed immediately because she wants treats throughout the day.
Right.
Right? She wants her 10 a.m. treats, she wants her 3 p.m. treats, she wants her 8 p.m. treats.
And you can't give her treats all the time because then she gets fat.
She just balloons up. She's like a little...
pregnant.
Yes, she does. And so she starts whining at me immediately. I'm like, I just fed you. I literally just fed you. I'd walked down... Oh, and then I realized the food was still there on the counter. That I was so scatterbrained that I hadn't fed the actual cat, and I was chewing her out for asking for the breakfast that she could see, but that I hadn't given her, because we have had a total breakdown of routine.
Something that I do fine with lack of routine.
I do not.
And you do not.
No, I like the same breakfast and lunch. I like a dependable day. This is when I get up. This is when I take the kids to their activities. These are the hours I work. These are the hours I exercise. It just helps me plan out the day, the month. It's comforting. Find comfort in routine, and we cannot do that now.
At least the hot tub's working?
At least the hot tub is working. That's fantastic. But yeah, so with 1 week to go, everything's packed up. The kids have been with my folks for the last week.
8 days.
8 days.
They left, your mom came and picked them up last Friday. And then, never mind all of the contractors that have been coming, because we're going to sell our house. So you had the garage door people come Thursday.
Replaced the garage doors, got the one that wasn't working, the motor working again.
Then we've got the handyman that starts on Tuesday, and then the tree people come on the 31st.
We have an actual view of the mountain, not that you can tell.
Wouldn't know it. And then the painters start the day after we move, and then...
The landscapers were here last week.
And then...
And the exterminator, too.
Oh, yeah. They were trying to...
There was a wasp. We're building a nest behind the light fixture of our deck.
Did he spray around the house so that we could get rid of the sugar ants?
He got those too, yeah. Actually told me an interesting story there. He's not allowed to lay down any poison unless he can see a live ant there.
Oh.
You can't just spray at random. So he waited and he saw one, and one was coming out to retrieve the body of one of its colony mates. And he told me, apparently this is a thing that they do, is they don't leave any ants behind. When an ant dies, it emits a pheromone that tells the other ants in the colony, come get me and put me in our graveyard.
Oh, that's so sad.
Well, and he said the reason he learned this was some guy with a YouTube channel and an ant farm started experimenting, and he took the pheromones off of a dead ant and put it on a live ant. And the other ant's colony mates picked him up and carried him to the graveyard and put him there. And the ant basically thought, well, I'm dead, because he stayed there in the graveyard until the pheromone wore off. And then he's like, oh okay. And he went back to work.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway, we're a little getting a bit off topic.
Talking about dead ants.
Dead ants, which is a place our conversations inevitably lead. Welcome to Coddiwomple. I'm Matt Vancil.
And I'm Camille Vancil.
This is the podcast where we meander from topic to topic purposefully towards a vague destination. Camille, thank you for sitting in for Nathan this week.
Oh, Nathan.
This month, actually, yeah. Total breakdown in routine has made it a little harder for us to schedule things, and we're actually recording not from the Barefoot Media office, but from our kitchen table.
Our kitchen table in our old house.
So different soundscape. You may hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. I've had that clock since Jeff Miles and I had the apartment in the late 90s. And we will not be recording from the office anymore because our new house actually has an office space.
Oh my God.
So we can my commute
bedroom.
my commute will be walking downstairs, which is much nicer than what we have now. Oh, you're scowling at me now.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that a move is hectic and time consuming and chaotic when it's happening during a calm time of year. We did not expect to be moving this quickly. We had been talking about a move for a while because we were outgrowing this home and needed more space, not just for the children, but to bring my activities into the house. But we also didn't want to leave the neighborhood because our kids are in the school system here.
We're forging friendships.
We don't want to leave the community center where they have their swim lessons and their summer camp. So it was this very narrow window that we were looking for of it's got to be a slightly larger house, but in the same community, same schools, same everything. And this is our price range that we can't really budge on.
Let's also, just since... Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
My dad. Yeah.
For helping us with the down payment and the repairs.
Yes.
So we weren't expecting to move because we figured it would take a long time to find a home that would fit these criteria. And then...
If I may.
Please.
So I remember one weekend when the kids were with my dad. We thought, let's just go to some open houses.
That's right.
And we went and saw, I think, 3. And we were kind of thinking about that one that was across the street from Doodle's
School. Yeah.
Doodle's School, but they the HOA wouldn't let us put in a fence and all this stuff, and then it got sold. Fine. So then we contacted our realtor Ed and said we'd like to go see some houses because there was that one that we really loved with all the stained glass. My family's in the stained glass business. And I said, let's just let's go see this other one too, because it's kind of close by.
That had just popped up.
Just popped up, and they were both houses were reviewing offers within a week. We hadn't been pre-approved, so this was more just sort of let's start touring houses to see what we like, what we don't.
Let's see what's out there. Let's see the sort of house we might be able to buy.
It's like an interview process.
Exactly. And a thing I should point out is, I don't know if it's still the case, but for a while there, Tacoma was actually the hottest housing market in the United States. Commute-wise, Seattle is exploding. Its tech sector is growing, and there's nowhere else to go that's north or east or west. So south is the direction that you can still buy and actually have a home and a yard.
But not everywhere has good school district, and Tacoma has an excellent school district.
And we're in this odd section of Tacoma, northeast Tacoma. We are across Commencement Bay.
Soon to be Browns Point.
Ooh. We're across Commencement Bay, and there's this place where the county line between Pierce and King County goes from east-west to northwest-southeast, and it just shoots up across the cutting off the bottom part of this bulb of Federal Way. And there are a lot of streets in our neighborhood that are Tacoma, and then they're Federal Way, and then they're Tacoma again.
And it's actually northeast-southwest.
Northeast-southwest, thank you. What did I say?
Northwest-southeast.
Oh. Well, whatever. She's my better half. She corrects me.
But
anyway, the housing market being so hot that something would come onto the market and then be gone days later. So we figured that this other house that we were going to look at that had just popped up.
Right. Well, and both houses were reviewing offers in a week. We hadn't been pre-approved, and so I remember being on a conference call in the car, and when you walked into this house, and I got texts from you saying, "Oh my gosh, Camille, this house, it's amazing. The view of the water, and it's modern. It's got this beautiful backyard. Just hang on, I've got half hour here." And I walked in, and I was like, "Yeah." It had a bar, you guys.
A wine bar.
It had a bar with. I work in the wine industry here in Washington State, and it has a bar, and the wine fridge stays. And I was like, set up my cot. This is my room. It has a laundry room, and just it checked off all the criteria. Check, check, check. But we knew that we wouldn't get it because they were reviewing offers, and I guess there were already a couple in, and so we just let it go. Well, I was obsessed with checking Redfin like every hour, and I saw it pop up again, and so I reached out to a realtor, and I said, what's going on? And he said, well, they didn't accept any of the offers, and they really want it to go to a family. And this is when I called my dad, I called our banker, and I said, we need to get pre-approved. So my dad came out, saw the house, and went, yeah.
Well, not only did he, when he came out, it just happened to coincide with when the
that's right.
The family was moving out. And what we learned was, and what we extrapolated from the available data was, this is a couple whose children had grown up in this home, and they were moving actually to a larger home
because they have like 8 grandkids.
8 grandkids. So we happened to show up at a time we weren't, and this wasn't just, we weren't scheming. Hey, let's go when they're there. They just happened to be there, and then they saw Doodle and Bubble, who are 7 and 3,
playing in the front yard.
And apparently that ticked the boxes in their heads. We wrote them a nice letter.
Well,
to be included with the with our
the
offer,
nice letter.
And we made an offer on
Bubbles'
Bubbles' 3rd birthday, and expecting, again, this is going to be a long, drawn-out process. We probably won't get the house. You have to look at something like 10 to 15 houses on average before you find the one, and so it probably won't be until September or October that it actually happens. And then they accepted our first offer.
They accepted our first offer, and then we had the inspection that Friday. And then when that report came back, we made our quote-unquote demands of things that need to be fixed, like,
please remove the dead rats from the crawl space.
Things like that. And they said sure.
And I got to emphasize, this is during the absolute busiest, worst time of year that this could have happened for us. It was in the last couple weeks of the Journey Quest 4 campaign. Camille's work is,
so I am the manager of the trade barrel auction for the Auction of Washington Wines, and I'm executive assistant to our executive director. So the trade barrel auction is we have 43 auction lots this year, 43 wineries and 4 really special auction lots this year, so a total of 47. And what I mean by trade is that it is trade focused, in that restaurateurs, hotels, casinos, and a smattering of high-end collectors come and bid on these wine futures. And what wine futures are is that you're tasting wine, you're bidding on wine that won't be available for at least a few months to possibly a few years. So and
some of these are unique
vintages. And everything is unique. Like, you will not be able to find this wine anywhere else. So this is my 3rd private barrel auction. Last year we raised $250,000 in an hour and a half.
That's incredible.
And our 2 highest sellers last year were from DeLille Cellars and Leonetti Cellar, and both lots for 5 cases. Each lot is 5 cases unless otherwise noted.
And how much is in a case?
12 bottles, 12 wine bottles. So what, 70 bottles?
60, I think. 60.
Yeah, see, I can't do math. 60 bottles for DeLille, 60 bottles for Leonetti. Each went for $16,000.
Holy crap!
Well, we're trying to get up there with the Napa auction, which raises millions and millions and millions of dollars.
But Napa's the gold standard. That's incredible.
Well, this is our 5th auction. Private barrel auction. The Auction of Washington Wines has existed for over 30 years, and all of our proceeds go to Seattle Children's Hospital and Washington State University viticulture and enology research programs. The private barrel auction, which is like my 3rd child at this point, all of our proceeds go to WSU. So I'm just going to put this out there. I am not a University of Washington Husky. I am not a Washington State University Cougar. I am a Pacific Lutheran University Loot. So I have no allegiance to either. I don't bleed gold and I don't bleed red.
You're like in the World Cup. They always make sure the ref is from a nation
Exactly.
that's not playing in the match.
But it is really exciting to be part of something bigger than myself, and I do feel like I'm giving back in some way. The Chateau Saint Michel WSU Viticulture and Enology wine school is, I haven't been to the facility, but it's absolutely incredible, and it's ensuring the future of our wine industry, where in, I think I want to say late 70s, early 80s, there were maybe 5 to 10 wineries.
It's statewide?
Statewide, and now there's almost 1,000. Somewhere between 900 and 15,000 wineries here in the state.
Well, it seems like a perfect point to transition to the next item on our itinerary. So that was our introduction. That's how hectic things have been. And this is the busiest time of the year for you.
Yes. So the private barrel auction is on August 15th.
Right. So this is the point. What are you working on these days?
I am working on the private barrel auction, so I'm trying to confirm all of our guests, which include trade guests, collectors, and our sponsors. WSU is bringing 11 volunteers, so I've also been working on a volunteer and staffing plan presented in 3 different structures for 20 people. I have to finalize our guest list. I'm applying for a permit through the state to make, because you can't serve, there's a special auction permit through the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board, because weed is now legal here in the state.
I remember for your birthday last year, for your 40th.
That's right.
You had to get a permit, a banquet permit.
Yes.
Just to serve the drinks.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there's that. I'm trying to. So again, we have 43 wineries. I'm trying to finalize the names of everybody who's coming, because we have to print name badges starting next week.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I mean, that's just top of mind. Jamie, I'm sorry. There's probably stuff that Jamie's my boss. There's probably stuff that I'm forgetting. I'm very sorry. But
and these guests, these are high rollers. These are bigwigs in the industry.
Yes.
And you're housing all these people.
Well, not all of them. So we do have about 17 people from all over the country and Canada that we're housing. They are our hosted trade. So basically what that means is that they come Wednesday through Saturday. Some come early or stay longer, but we house them for 3 nights at the Heathman Hotel in Kirkland. And we reimburse them up to a certain amount for their flights.
Sure.
And so we have the wine director from Spago in Beverly Hills, Wolfgang Puck's signature restaurant.
Wow.
He's coming. He used to be the sommelier or work in the wine program at Canlis in Seattle. We have someone coming from Chattanooga. We have someone coming from New York. We have someone coming from, I think, West Palm Beach, Florida, Bukan Imoto. I think he was recommended by one of our wineries. We have David from Timberline Lodge down in Oregon. Mm-hmm. We have Rich from the Water Bar in San Francisco.
Wow.
We have someone coming from Denver. Chuck Jenkins from Texas. And then we also have Anthony Gismondi from Vancouver, BC. And he is our media guest, our hosted media guest from Gismondi on Wine. And he was recommended by Aquilini. So there's all these amazing connections. And as manager, my job is to make sure that Jamie just gets to be herself. So she was the director of the private barrel auction for a couple of years. And then she recently got the executive director position of the Auction of Washington Wines. So if you think about it, the Auction of Washington Wines is this big umbrella. Mm-hmm. And the private barrel auction is under that umbrella. Mm-hmm. So she and I worked very closely together. It was just the 2 of us. And now she's the executive director of a team of probably about 10 people. And so now I am managing up to her and saying, these are all the things I'm working on. And then I have a team of a couple part-time people that are helping me, mostly with Elizabeth, who is working on the program and signage and working with our graphic designer.
That sounds like it's just a massive undertaking.
It is. We never stopped working. My first private barrel auction, we took like a little break and just kind of calmed down. Last year, we just transitioned right into the next auction. I've been working on this for 11 months.
Yeah, you've been, and now is only the busy season. Well, the busiest season.
It really kicks in June because that's when we start finalizing everything for the program. You know, I love wineries. Sometimes trying to get details from them, it's just really hard because they're just so busy. And winemakers and growers are often in the vineyards, and they're just really hard to get a hold of. They're busy people. So but you know what? I wouldn't trade it for anything. I went to school at Northwest Wine Academy and thinking that I would be a manager at a winery, probably up in Woodinville, because where we live, there's not a whole lot happening in terms of wineries and tasting rooms here. And now, every year, I get to work with more and more of the state's top wineries. So we have like Woodward Canyon, LaCole, Doubleback, Leonetti, DeLille, Aquilini, Janik, and a big thank you, by the way, I have to say, to Novelty Hill Janik Winery up in Woodinville, as they are letting us use their entire facility for the entire day. They've closed their tasting room.
No kidding.
Yeah, and they are letting us use their entire facility.
How cool.
So back to the hosted trade. Basically what happens is they fly in Wednesday. They go to a party Wednesday night, and then the next day is the trade barrel auction, which I'm managing, and then they go to Picnic. And Picnic is the winemaker picnic and barrel auction, which is open to the public. Oh. And tickets are still available. And that's from 4 to 8 or 8:30. And so that's at Chateau Saint Michel. And then then they go back to the hotel. And then Friday we have a VIP seminar and luncheon for our hosted trade and sponsors and select media. And I'm very excited about our luncheon. This is something that Jamie started last year, and this year it's a seminar hosted by Bob Betts, who's one of the grandfathers of the Washington wine industry and is one of the sweetest men I've ever met. And we'll have a panel of 6 of our private barrel auction wineries, the winemakers. It's a seminar for about an hour, and then we have lunch.
Let's talk a bit about the Washington wine industry. You mentioned that, 20, 30 years ago, there were maybe 5 or 10 wineries statewide. When you think of American wine, I think maybe most people would think of California. And the Chardonnays, Napa Valley, or maybe Oregon and the Pinots. What is the state of Washington wine? What are the characteristics of Washington wine?
That is a great question, and I would say if you're looking for California Chardonnay, Oregon Pinot, I would say that the Washington varietal would definitely be Cabernet Sauvignon. And if you look at the parallels on a globe, if you look...
longitude?
Thank you. We're on the same longitude as Bordeaux in France. And so Bordeaux blends are Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Blanc, Cabernet Franc, Cab Sauv, Cab Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot. There's one more. I can't believe I've forgotten.
It's early. You haven't had your coffee.
Cab Sauv. Merlot.
Merlot.
Yes.
That's French? So Washington is on the same parallel, basically, as Bordeaux. As the Bordeaux region.
So a lot of what is grown in Bordeaux grows well here in Washington State as well. But what is wonderful about Washington State, I know this, I'm going on a tangent here, is that we can grow so many varieties here. And so we can grow Chardonnay. And Chardonnay kind of cracks me up. It's one of those grapes that's, there's really no defining characteristic to me about Chardonnay, but it's so malleable. So winemakers can really just do anything they want with it. And so a lot of people are probably thinking, I don't like Chardonnay. And this is something I learned probably my first quarter at the Northwest Wine Academy. Chardonnay aged in stainless steel tanks has a totally different flavor than Chardonnay aged in barrel, which Chardonnay aged in barrel tends to have that oaky, buttery flavors that we're familiar with coming from California. But Chardonnay, at least partially aged in stainless steel tanks, it's crisp, it's refreshing, it's very food friendly. So I would highly recommend that when you're looking at your bottle of Chardonnay, look on the bottle, see if it's aged in stainless steel tanks. If you're looking at wines from France, look for a Chablis, which is the name of the region in Burgundy. And Chablis, they are primarily making Chardonnay over there, and all of it, I would say 90 to 95%, is aged in stainless steel tanks.
Cool.
Oh, what are you working on?
Thank you. It's the first time through. I'll point out the notes. So that's what you're working on. And of course, perfect time to drop buying a house into the middle of all of that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So what am I working on? The semester just ended.
Yay!
Semester just ended, and so I've still got some films to grade. The finals. The final grades are due on Tuesday, and I've still got some straggler assignments coming in. So I'll be grading.
Turn your work in, kids.
Yep, I'll be grading those next week. It's in the syllabus. I gave them progress reports. I made it very, very clear throughout the semester. The way you fail this class is by not getting your assignments in. You know, it's odd that I removed the auto failure condition of if you do not turn in a single one of your assignments, you fail a course, which I thought was too harsh. So I said, well, no, just you can get it in by the end of the semester. There will be a penalty to it.
Right.
But get it in. And yet the students who fail the class are the ones who they don't do the assignments. They miss 2 or 3, and it's enough to tank their grade. So do the work, kids. I might have to actually reinstate the auto-fail stipulation. Just put the fear of God in them again to get the stuff done. Anyway, so the semester's done. I am still working on the Farther All World Bible. I've been working on it for since the end of February, pretty much straight. And but I'm near the end. I'm in the heroes section. These are the lore rewards for the backers. All the people who pledged at a certain level to the Journey Quest 3.5 campaign. Thank you so much. Who get to have little heroes of their own creation appear in the world history. And the reason that took so long was I couldn't effectively start on the heroes section until I'd finished the history section, because I needed to know the context into which each hero fit.
Right.
So then people sent in their heroes. I think there were over 300 heroes or more of heroes, epic heroes, demigods, and whatnot.
Jesus.
And needed to, lower rewards. I mean, well, thousands of Orcish words last time around. It does add up. And not everyone read all of the questions and provided what age your hero actually goes into. So, like, I had over 140 uncategorized heroes that I had to go through and figure, okay, this person sounds like 6th age, 2nd age over here. And I know that the Kickstarter text was pretty much, you'll have your character's name, their race, their class listed. Right. But that's not enough. So I'm putting a few lines in there, what their epic deed was, and that got them listed up.
Could you have like an epic quote?
I can't add features to the project at this point. Some of them have. So that's been fun. I really do enjoy integrating backer requests into the lore of the world, because it's becoming canon now. It's very much like improv or a role-playing game. You have the story that you are expecting to tell, and you just incorporate the player desires to that, because oftentimes it enriches rather than detracts from. You just have to figure out how to fit it in.
And you've been building Farther All in your head and on paper since you were what, 12? 10?
In many ways, like it used to be like when we first started with the gamers, Farther All was.
No, I'm trying to talk like way back when you were a kid. You told me that you were working on stuff.
Right. I mean, I'd been writing fantasy or attempting to write fantasy since like 6th grade. But when we started with the gamers, I basically put a wall between the stuff that had been my campaign and fiction worlds, mm-hmm. and then the movie worlds. And as I've gotten older and as Farther All's gotten more complex, I've done a lot of borrowing from that sort of behind that wall of campaign stuff, because I figure I'm never going to write that, and frankly I don't want to, because it was developed by a teenager. It's not very realistic. It's immature in many ways, but there were some elements that I liked, so I'm taking those and putting them in farther role there. Basically, stealing from a younger version of myself to
young Matthew
enrich the project here. So that's what I'm working on. I really want to have that done before we visit Oregon at the end of August.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
Because that really has felt, and I mentioned this to my dad, and he said, well, duh, after all his years teaching college and high school, that August feels more like the end of the year than December. Mm-hmm. Because we've gone through an entire academic year. The kids are home for the summer. Camille's your work is heaviest in the late summer. And then we get this nice sort of end of the year week that we go to this little cabin on the Oregon coast, and that feels like the we're done with the year. It's time to level up into the next year.
But this year, we are going to our little cabin. But this year, the grandparents are coming in their own space.
Yes, there's not enough room in the little cabin.
Nope.
Which is emphasis little cabin.
Little 2-bedroom cabin on the Oregon coast, just south of Manzanita.
Manzanita, right?
Yeah.
And within walking distance of a couple of wonderful parks. And the beach. And it's in a place that's a non-touristy area, so that when you can basically cross the street, go to the beach, and no one else is there.
Yeah.
And this is the endless Oregon coast with a very, very low gradient. Like Santa Monica has a very steep shore. Like you take 1, 2, 3 steps and you're up to your knees. Whereas we can watch Bubble run towards the surf, stop, scream, turn around, and run all the way back 20 or 30 yards.
What was it last year? She just totally face-planted?
Totally wiped out in the surf. And then she ran back to you crying. You picked her up, wrapped her in your sweater, and then 2 seconds later she was running back towards the water giggling.
Those kids. They've been gone for 8 days, and we get to pick them up tonight. Mm-hmm. Really miss them.
So one funny thing, the place that we stay is this little, I don't even think there's a stoplight in town. Every place sells ice cream.
Yeah.
But the first year we were there was the year that Oregon passed its recreational cannabis bill.
That's right.
So the very next year we went, in this tiny little no stoplight town, there were 3 pot shops.
Yep, I'm not complaining.
I had a good vacation. All right, let's move on to the next bit. What are you reading now in your copious spare time?
In my copious spare time. Well, so I commute to Seattle about 2 to 3 days a week. And so in my time, I'm just going to put this, I get car sick, so I can't read on the bus. So in the evenings, to relax, I'm reading this amazing book called The Stray and the Hole in the Stars, also known as Hop Jockey. Mm. And I really have a crush on the writer. He's a good guy.
We'll talk about that later.
I'm not too far into it. Matt's been hammering me to why won't you read my book? And a lot of it is just by the time I have time to kick back and read, I'm exhausted. Mm-hmm. And I really want to give this book my full attention. And so I have a feeling I'm going to finish it, honestly, hun, when we're on vacation. But I will say this. The friends of ours that I've spoken to that read it at Reunicon, that have read it already, they love it. They think it's your best work yet. My favorite book that you've ever written is Pwned.
The other one. I've only written a couple.
So another book that I've been kind of reading is called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office, Unconscious Mistakes Women Make That Sabotage Their Careers. And it's just sort of, mistake number 49, limiting your possibilities. Mistake 88, the inability to speak the language of business. So it's just...
That is a well-worn paperback.
Well, I bought it used from Amazon.
Are those bloodstains?
Oh, mistake 20, failure to prepare for social interactions.
So you're working in a different... How would you describe the...
This is my boss's favorite. Not answering the questions you're asked. Which you're probably picking up on that during this podcast.
What is the work environment like? That you're allowed to talk about.
That I'm allowed to talk about. Well, for the last couple of years, it's just been Jamie and me with a few contractors. I would work out of her house on the east side, east of Seattle. And so we had a very personal relationship, you know. And now...
I just fed you.
That's Bean, our cat. She's feeling nervous because there's boxes everywhere.
Yeah, the last time the boxes showed up, we lost our apartment.
Oh, honey. Yeah. No, it's all women, and it's an incredible group of dynamic women. We're all very smart. We're all very driven, and we want this to succeed. But it's a lot, you know. For the Auction of Washington Wines, you have the party Wednesday night. You've got the barrel auction and picnic on the same day. And then we have our luncheon on Friday, and then Saturday is the gala at $500 a ticket, or a bigger amount if you want to buy a table.
Wow.
And that's where they raise quite a bit of money. And there's 3 different auctions happening. There's silent, super silent, and then the live auction. So
what is a super silent auction?
I'm going to find out this year. This is my first year going to the gala.
Can't even talk about it. I like
yes.
it. That's how that's
if
how
I tell you, I have to kill you.
I'm going to press stop on the recording.
And then the one that I've been listening to the most is called Divergent, which was, it's part of a trilogy. Mm-hmm. And it was made into a movie, I think, with Shailene Woodley.
I think I remember seeing
trailers
for that.
Yeah, so I've listened to it before, but I'm listening to it again because it's the gal who reads it. She's fantastic, Emma something or other, and she is wonderful. So, very compelling.
What genre is that?
Science fiction.
Ooh.
It's very very much on the Hunger Games sort of aesthetic.
Cool.
And what are you reading?
Well, I just finished. I haven't had as much time to read as I normally do, and usually.
Why? What's going on?
I've been slacking, basically. You know, wasting my time staring at the wall, that sort of thing.
Checking Facebook and
all the time.
Cleaning up the cat poop when she shits outside the box.
That she does. So, I recently finished a book called "The Man They Wanted Me to Be: Toxic Masculinity and a Crisis of Our Own Making" by Jared Yates Sexton, who is a professor of creative writing and a journalist who followed the rise of the Trump campaign in 2016. And this is a book, because I follow him on Twitter, I've read a number of his articles, and I like his writing style and his insights. And this book is equal parts memoir and social commentary. He recounts his life growing up. He's younger than we are by a couple of years. Of growing up in rural Indiana and the struggles he and his mother went through with his series of stepfathers, all of whom were physically or emotionally abusive, while trying to hold up, all of them trying to live up to this caustic masculine ideal. And he gets into some really interesting background on how this sense of the American male, how we're supposed to behave, specifically the white American Christian male is supposed to behave, that it stems from a perversion of the American dream. This idea that anyone can come here and be anything that they want, but then the practical realities of capitalism and limited opportunity warped it so that, you know, the American dream is you can own your own home and be the master of it. And that in the 50s and 60s, when manufacturing jobs were at their height and you could make enough to live with, you know, one parent income, the man could be the master of his own domain. But as we've entered a global economy and the things have shifted to favor the sort of the softer skills that have more often been feminized, the idea of skills in communication or creativity, that there's this loss of what makes them manly. And yet, even at the time of the height of this, it wasn't healthy. You know, the people are finding their identity in, I am suffering to provide for my family. I'm working myself to death for my family. You know, that the
literally.
Yes, the way you are meant to behave is you must be stoic, silent, ready to be violent at any moment, and the only emotion you're allowed is anger. You must love trucks, you must love guns, you must not show any sort of affection or softness. And he goes through how, because he was more of a even though he found himself mimicking these behaviors, he was more of a sensitive boy growing up, and that there was all this pressure from his family and from his peers to reinforce the way that you will behave.
Right.
Right? Now, the worst thing you can be is feminine or gay, because these are not masculine.
Right.
And if you are not masculine, you are nothing. Women are worthy of contempt for their weakness and all this. And it's just, it was so sad but because he's still struggling with it. And he recounts his own almost suicide attempts, because he was so driven to a place of shame and feeling failure, because it's
toxic.
It is toxic, and it is a perception of masculinity that was designed to be unachievable, right?
Sure.
Marketing drove this idea of the American male that you see in the truck commercials, and if you are not living up to that, you are a failure, and that the shame and anger that comes from that is literally killing men, shortening their lives. So highly recommended there. And then wanted to move to something a little less depressing. So I've tried to start this book called The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. Remember, the writer of Brave New World.
Oh.
Yes, and I got turned on to this book when I was reading, and I mentioned it on an earlier podcast, How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan.
Yes.
When he was recounting his experiences taking different psychedelic drugs and mapping out how that changed his perspective, what was actually happening in his brain. And he mentioned that Huxley experimented with psychedelics and had vast spiritual experiences that he recounted. And I've tried to get into this a couple of times, but it's been this week when the kids are gone, and I'm spend the first part of the day writing and the second part of the day packing, and so I'm exhausted by the time, and I've got melatonin in the system by the time I sit down and try to read a book about altered reality perceptions, and I pass out. So I figure I'll get more into that once we're in the new house. What are you watching now?
Oh, I am watching my classic favorite show. I'm obsessed with this show. I've been watching it for decades.
Yes, you have.
The Golden Girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm a combination between Rose and Blanche. Because early, 20 years ago, I would have totally been Rose. 100%. Did I say Blanche?
Yes.
I meant Rose and Dorothy.
Rose and Dorothy.
Yeah, not Blanche. No, except for maybe how sassy.
Mm-hmm.
And Sophia. I would say Rose, Dorothy, Sophia, Blanche.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got turned on to this show called Jane the Virgin, which is now on Netflix. And it's a soap opera, but it's very entertaining. And
what's it about?
It's about a woman named Jane.
Really? Is she a virgin?
Yes, and she gets pregnant.
Oh.
She is accidentally, artificially inseminated.
Oh my. That has no religious undertones.
Yeah. But it's a telenovela.
Okay.
So she finds, for those of you who might be wanting to watch it, and I don't want to do it or give away any spoilers, but it's one of those shows that I can binge watch for a little while and then I have to take a break.
I see.
Because it does start to get a little unbelievable. Okay. And then this last one I blame you for. I started watching Stranger Things.
It's so good.
It is so good, and I am almost done with the first season, and then you and I can start watching season 2 together.
Season 2 and 3 together. I am holding off on watching season 3 until you've caught up.
Yes, and I would say for those of you who maybe don't want to watch it because it looks scary, it is, as Matt said, because he knows what I can put up with and what I can't. It is more suspenseful than scary, and I will say that comparing it to something like Game of Thrones and that like blood and guts and scary, I watched most of Game of Thrones with a blanket over my face and asking you to describe what was going on.
I remember you because it didn't take you much convincing on my part to actually get you to watch it, because every 3 or 4 months you'd ask me, would I like Stranger Things? Mm-hmm. And because I know you hate spoilers.
I hate spoilers.
So I'm like, I can't say what it's like because it's not like anything out there. The closest I could come up with was X-Files,
or with like a smattering of Goonies,
which is what I've liked. And now we can discuss it because you're watching it. The insight, I forget who wrote this, but it was a fantastic insight about the show that I loved so much, was that you've basically got 3 different 80s kinds of movies happening at the same time, right? You've got Joyce and Hopper are sort of following the conspiracy theory,
X-Files.
What are the powers behind the throne, X-Files thing. The teenagers are clearly in an 80s slasher film. And the kids are on one of those Goonies or Explorers-like adventure,
yes.
right? And it's all happening at the same time.
Winona Ryder is absolutely fantastic. What was it that you said when she was like going crazy with the lights? You said, she's really got that distressed thing going on, because she was just crying and losing her mind.
I don't remember.
But she's fantastic. I mean, I've always loved Winona Ryder, but this is probably one of her best roles to date.
You know, they're making a sequel to Beetlejuice, right?
Shut up.
It's online. They've got a teaser online for it.
Oh my God, we so have to watch this when we're done with this. And what are you watching?
Well, as I've been saying for the last few podcasts, Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I actually finished it this week, and that was pretty emotional because I've said this before. I remember knowing the show when it first came out, but not seeing all of the episodes. So while I saw the sort of the overview of the series, I didn't get the nitty-gritty of everything in between. And having seen it, every episode start to finish, at the end, it was so satisfying, but like the rest of the show, sad, ultimately. You know, unlike the other Star Treks, Next Generation and Voyager, where the focus is a ship that's going somewhere. Deep Space Nine is a town. It's there. People come in and they pass through and they go their separate ways. And how the other series concluded was also less concrete in a way. You know, Next Generation just transitioned into its movies, which became like really long episodes. And Voyager, they succeeded. They got home. Everyone's happy. They make it back to the Alpha Quadrant. Deep Space Nine, the group splits in half, and it's not necessarily happy. You know, O'Brien takes a job teaching at Starfleet Academy and loses that.
Any spoilers? Don't pay attention.
Sorry. Loses that connection with Dr. Bashir. They had that wonderful platonic relationship. Worf becomes ambassador, the Federation ambassador to the Klingon Empire, so he goes. Odo, tragically, has to leave Kira to go back to the planet of the changelings and cure them of the disease, the metagenic virus. So he has to leave Kira, not knowing when he'll come back. And Sisko was taken by the prophets into the wormhole, away from his wife, who they warned him not to marry because his path was one of sorrow, who was pregnant, away from his son, you know. So you've got this splitting that happens of the cast and the people.
And what happens to Kira?
What happens to Kira? She becomes the new commander of Deep Space Nine, and it ends on this where it kind of begins with Jake looking out the window on the promenade, and at the end of the series they did this wonderful little flashback sequence of the characters of some of their fondest memories when they were there. And when we cut back to Jake, because he's a man at this point, we see the 13-year-old short with his wonderful space dad, and he's looking out this window wondering where his father is. And Kira comes up and, you know, no words are necessary, gives him a hug and a reassuring, you know, arm over the shoulder, and they look out the window together, and we pull away until it vanishes in the distance. So I love that show because it grounded you in the reality of the characters' lives in a way that the other shows didn't. You know, Deep Space Nine, while the utopianism of the other Trek series was certainly present, it was tempered by a healthy dose of reality and realism and pragmatism. And I still think it's the best Trek to date. And so, I started the next one. I started Voyager.
Well, in between that, though, didn't you watch a couple of Star Trek movies?
I watched the final 2 Next Generation movies, Insurrection and Nemesis, which I hadn't seen before.
Okay.
And the reason I'm excited to get to the end of Nemesis is
You didn't finish it?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I finished Nemesis because 2002 was the year that the final Next Generation movie came out, Star Trek Nemesis, and it was the year that Voyager went off the air. And the next Star Trek show that came on, Enterprise, actually took place in the past. So you had from 1987, with the beginning of Star Trek Next Generation, to 2002, with the end of Voyager and Nemesis, 15 years of canon storyline progression. That was the end of the present for Star Trek, right?
Right.
Then Enterprise and Discovery are both taking place in the past. But, I mean, aside from stuff that's happened in the novels, which I haven't read, that Voyager Nemesis line was the end of the Star Trek canon. And that's the stuff I was most interested in, continuing those stories that had been built over Next Generation and DS9 and Voyager, which is why I'm so excited about Star Trek Picard, the show that's coming up, picking up 20 years later, because in the trailer for Comic-Con, we saw Data, or rather pieces of him. And we don't know if it's actually Data, because Brent Spiner was one of the producers of Nemesis, because he wanted the character to die, because he did not think he could give justice to the unaging nature of the character when he himself was aging.
Oh, sure. No, that makes sense.
So they, Data did not survive Nemesis, again, spoiler, but then either he or Lore or Before did, because they're showing him in this bit, but also 7 of 9 is Jerry Ryan's character from Voyager, the woman who was aboard and was pulled out of the collective.
You had to say Jerry Ryan for me to figure out who that
appears in the Star Trek Picard trailer. So I'm really fascinated to see, and then we saw another Borg cube in that.
You guys, you should see the expression on his face. He's like 7 years old right now. I'm so excited.
I am such a super Trek nerd.
You are.
At this point. I love me some Star Trek.
You have to read the books now.
Oh, there's only a few dozen of those. Sure, I can get through them. I should also check out the video games, I guess, maybe. Speaking of which, are you playing anything right now?
On and off. We went to our dear friend John and Sarah's house last weekend.
Yes, for brunch, quote unquote.
Quote unquote. Ha ha ha. Got you.
Yes, you did.
But that was all John's idea. We played this fantastic game called Betrayal Legacy.
Camille surprised me with a board game day.
Well, John did. I just had a hand in it.
John and Camille surprised me with a board game day to take a break from the work and come play with your friends. And it was marvelous.
So, anyway, I'm going to just preface this with, when it comes to board games, I don't do well when it's like multiple booklets and all like 1,000 pieces, and everybody likes to read the rules ahead of time, and it's like I just get really overwhelmed easily with anything. And when you're surrounded by people who love to play these kinds of games and they're just into everything, I just go, oh my God, I'm never going to get this. This looks way too complicated. But there was something about Betrayal Legacy where I just picked up on it instantly. It was super fun. And the idea that you're building this game and there's cards that you can never use. Mm-hmm. And there was just something really unique about it.
So for those who aren't familiar, Betrayal Legacy is the legacy game version of Betrayal at the House on the Hill, I think it's what it's called. But it's a game that you play in episodes, basically.
Yes.
And there are some cards that become available and sections of the house that become available only when you're playing on the nth play of a game. And your decisions that you make can affect parts of the game that have not even come up yet.
Right.
You wind up putting stickers on tiles to permanently change their characteristics. You either add or delete cards from a potential pile of future omens.
And so I turned to Matt and I said, when we move into our new house, we need to get a copy of this game. It is absolutely fascinating. I loved it. And again, it's multiple rule books, all the stickers, all these pieces. And I was like, I understand everything that's happening here. And you guys, that happens so rarely. Ask Nathan Rice.
It's just, this is really good game design. It's really intuitive. The user interface is clear.
It is. But I took one look on John's towering wall of board games, and I took one look at Haunted Hill or whatever it's called, and there's like this freaky ring-like character.
That's the expansion, the Witch's Walk.
Not playing that one. I get nightmares easily, so.
Which is why I was stunned that you kept asking me if you would like Stranger Things.
Because all of my friends are watching it, and I didn't want to be the lame duck sitting out. And then I am also playing my coworker Laura who is the director of marketing and business at the auction, suggested a very fun little game to me called Plants vs. Zombies.
It's a classic mobile game.
It is I had never heard of it because I'm clueless when it comes to games. And I got totally obsessed with the first version. And it was really funny when I'd be playing late at night and just have the volume up a little bit. And, the little graphic at the beginning is all these plants like going boop, 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 boop. And then as I transition to the next screen, one of the zombies goes, and we would just have you have these zombies that groan and they make noises when they explode, and it's a lot of fun. And that's the first version of the game. The second version, I'm not totally sold on, though. I haven't played it as much because you're like playing in zombies in ancient Egypt and Rome. And I'm not.
What are they wearing? Little Egyptian pharaoh hoods or something?
Yes, they are. So it's a really different platform on this second version, and I'm not as sold. So then I've just been playing this little design game, like interior design, and I really like it. Maybe because I'm dreaming about all the things I can do with our new house.
Well, we're going to get to do that for real in 167 hours.
Oh. So what are you playing?
Well, I want to preface this with Doodle loves phone games.
He does.
Daddy,
can I have your phone? I've been
really good today. I'm not grounded anymore.
I'm getting more coffee.
All right. So his idea of video games are mobile phone games or the flash games he can play on PBS Kids.
Right.
And for a long time, I've wanted to convince him those aren't. I mean, yes, they are real video games, and you are a real gamer if you like Candy Crush and whatnot. But if you are looking only at mobile games and thinking this is what video games have to offer, you are missing so much of the industry and the art that's available. And so we got ourselves a Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild with him. And oh my goodness, does he love it. He's to the phase where he just wants to watch right now. But
he's pointing out stuff that you're missing.
He's pointing out stuff that I'm missing. He's saved my bacon a couple of times when he noticed, like when I'm in the middle of a fight and I managed to stumble into a cold, temperate zone. He's like, "Daddy, Link is shivering. Look!" And you go to the subscreen and Link is shaking. And
he thinks Link is a girl,
yes,
right?
He says, "She's cold, Daddy." And okay, put on your cold weather gear. He's got great advice, and he spots things on the screen. He loves it. He's doing the sort of watching the big brother or well, in this case, Daddy actually play the game. So he's getting a sense of what a console game system can deliver.
And Bubble is not interested in the least.
Not at all.
No, she's like, let me go out and play with the neighbor's skateboard or ride a bike.
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, playing Breath of the Wild, I love it. It's what I've wanted. It's kind of what I wanted from World of Warcraft. The world is vast, and there are no hard walls that I've found. Like in other Zelda games, you have had some hard walls, right? Like in Majora's Mask, the overworld is you've got Clocktown in the center, and then you've got the Hyrule Field around that, and then there are mountains that funnel you down into one of 4 different pathways. Do I go over here to the Deku Forest, or over here to the Zoras?
The Deku Forest.
Right? And if you so example of a hard wall, or a hard gate, I should say, there was a one of these that led to the frozen world was blocked by ice, and you couldn't bomb the ice, you couldn't melt the ice. The only way you couldn't jump over it, and if you look up, there was a big ice, giant stalactite of ice hanging by a small neck of ice that you had to break, and the only way to do that was to shoot it with an arrow, but you couldn't get the bow until you completed one of these other major dungeons. So it was a way to say, here's this whole other section of the game, but you can't get there until you've done this other thing.
Was that Ice World the one with the
Gorons?
Yes.
Where you hit him with your butt
yes.
on the third punch?
I
yes.
love those guys.
But in Breath of the Wild, while there are all these different zones, you can take your glider and you can go into the hardest zone in the game. You'll get your ass kicked, but you can go there. And, there are certain areas, it's like clearly we want to funnel you through this little canyon where you're going to have to fight these guys. And in other games, you couldn't actually physically climb the walls. They're there as barriers to keep you into the level. Here, yeah, no, if you've got enough stamina, you can climb to the top.
So they've created almost like an MMO.
It's a total sandbox world, and it's fantastic.
And it's massive. I've seen the map. It's
huge. It's just huge. And they are making a sequel, which is exciting.
Oh, so when does that come out? 2030?
Maybe. But I am a little worried that I may not be twitchy enough to win the boss fights in this one anymore.
Oh.
I know I've lost a step in my old age.
Well, you just need some time, honey.
Just more practice, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's.
And so you're gonna, and then when Wesley I'm sorry.
Doodle, I believe you mean.
Yes, sorry. You didn't hear that. You're gonna invite him to play Mario Kart.
Mario Kart,
which he can play with mommy.
Yes. And the Mario Kart game for Nintendo Switch is fantastic. It reminds me a lot of the N64 game. And it's got more cups. It's got the ability to drive up on walls and stuff and take a little hang glider over canyons. It's super cute.
Before we go get the kids?
Sure. Okay. All right. That's a good time to transition into the last bit here, which is the Q&A. So let's start there.
Who is your favorite director and why?
And whose question is that from?
Oh, Zamoman.
Who's my favorite director and why? I don't actually have a favorite director. Like, there's no director where if I hear so-and-so has a new movie out, I'm like, oh, I've got to go and see that.
Right.
But there are some where if I hear the name, I'm like, ooh, I'd like to check that out. And of those few, I've always enjoyed Terry Gilliam's work. Mm-hmm. Richard Curtis.
Yes.
Who is a British writer-director.
Love Actually.
He started on Blackadder
as
well, and Love Actually, and some other films. I believe his new film is that one about the Beatles, where everyone forgets the Beatles.
Yes, I do want to see that.
And there's only the one guy. For old school directors, Preston Sturges, who was Hollywood's first writer-director. And he did The Lady Eve and Sullivan's Travels. Sullivan's Travels was marvelous, heartbreaking, and stunning comedy with great heart about a Hollywood filmmaker named Sullivan who was known for doing comedies, and he wanted to do a drama. But the studio said, you are a comedic director, what the heck do you know about drama, about hardship? So he goes on a journey to learn about hardship. And this is during the Depression, right? And he comes back from it. Spoilers, I mean, you've had, so it's 1930, so you've had almost 90 years to see this movie. I can't math either. Comes back saying, you know what? At the end they say, yes, you can do your drama, but he says, you know what? I don't need to, because there's power in comedy. Do you know that, there's something to be said for making people laugh? Do you know that that's all some people have? And so it's a grand message. I love that film. So Preston Sturges, I say, might be my favorite director. Who's your favorite director and why?
Well, we kind of had this conversation before we started the recording. I was trying to think of somebody, and my first answer, honestly, was Lin-Manuel Miranda, but he didn't direct Hamilton. He produced and wrote and starred in it, but... and then I thought, well, the brothers who direct who are creators of Stranger Things.
Duffer Brothers?
Yes, and I do feel like there's a difference when they direct the episodes because they're the world builders.
It's their vision. Yeah.
It's their vision. I also love watching you direct. In watching episodes of Journey Quest, I can tell when you're involved because there's a presence, there's a difference, there's a different level of performance from the actors because this is your world.
You flatter me.
Well, you deserve it.
Thank you.
Rob McLennan wants to know, who is your favorite superhero? If different, your favorite Golden Age superhero.
My favorite superhero. Again, I don't really have a favorite. There's not one where I'm like, yeah, I've read all of their comics and watched all of their shows and who... whose, iconography I wear or anything like that. If there were one who I thought was the most practical, like if I could have anyone's superpower, it would be Multiple Man's. So Multiple Man he's part of the X-Men mutant universe.
Okay.
And his ability is that he can make duplicates of himself.
Oh, that would be handy.
Who can then go off and do stuff, learn new skills, have new experiences, and then he can reabsorb them and gain all their memories. And I always thought that is the superpower I need, because I could have 2 or 3 Matts working at any time, one working on the creative writing stuff, one working out, one napping.
And then the real one to spend with your family.
Exactly. And
got it.
Reabsorb them all. So, do you have a favorite superhero?
I was just thinking about this. It's a toss-up. It's a tie between Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman. And a lot of it just has to do... I did not read comic books. I don't think I've really read comic books or graphic novels, but the movies have been extremely helpful. And I have to say now, having a daughter, Bubble, I see a lot of strength and characteristics that I could see her being Wonder Woman, or I think after we saw Captain Marvel, I said, I want Bubble to be Captain Marvel when she grows up.
You've always pointed out she has a very well-developed sense of justice.
Oh, yes, she does. We have a playground in our backyard, and the neighborhood kids will come over, and they'll immediately go towards the swing, and Bubble will go out there because she's the smallest of all of them. She'll go out there and she'll go, "Hey, King, that's my..." She has a funny way of saying swing. Swin. That's my swin. And they don't get off her swin, and she'll come back, and I love you, Julia. She's got your sister's expression when she's mad. I want my swin.
Angry pouty duck face.
It's She has. Bubble has a strong sense of justice.
I'm going to amend my answer. I also have always enjoyed the Hulk, because there's something really therapeutic about an intellectual who gets mad enough that he runs around breaking shit and is invulnerable while doing so.
Oh, do you want to tell the story about the printer?
I do not. Another one by Rob McLennan here.
I rather like the treatment of death in the Incarnations of Immortality series by Piers Anthony. Have either Nathan or Matt read any of those? The series starts with On a Pale Horse.
I have not, and I don't know if Nathan has either.
Should we call and ask him?
No.
Okay.
We're already running over. Linkmaster General, that's Seth Davis.
Hi, Seth.
Hands of Fate.
Oh, in Hands of Fate, the meat refers to Leo as Da Vinci. Was that a nickname, or is Leo's name Leo Da Vinci? Update.
Oh, update.
I found the answer. It's Leo Lamb. Da Vinci was just Meech's nickname because of how Leo played R9E.
That is correct. You've answered your own question. Very nice. Okay, so final question.
From
Red.
Oh, hi, Red. Not sure when you're doing your next episode, but is there a part in modern popular media that you would love to act or work in? So, like, I would love to do anything in Star Wars or a musical theater. I would love to be Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar, something like that.
For a long time, I mean, I used to love Broadway musicals. I don't dislike them anymore. I didn't fall out of love with them. But there's a period where I was in college where I collected soundtracks, and that was what I would listen to. And I always wanted to play the Beast from the Broadway version of Beauty and the Beast. And that persisted until I actually saw it. Because when I was listening to it and just going by the music alone, it sounded like a much more serious piece. But when I saw it, and I forgot, of course. It's for children. It's a family piece. There was a lot of silliness and childishness that happened in there. The playfulness is a better way to say it, which sort of took a little bit of the gravitas away from the Beast story and kind of made that less so.
And then Shrek.
And Shrek the musical. I would love to play Shrek. I think they handled that silliness, goofiness well there. And I would love to do Into the Woods. I wouldn't want to be one of the princes. If I were still young, if I were 16 or 17, I would love to play Jack. But by 17, I was 6'2" and 230, and I don't expect you're not expecting an offensive lineman to play that character.
I could see you being one of the prince that has a dual part in that musical.
The wolf.
Yes.
That would be fun. The wolf would be great. If I could play any role in Into the Woods, that would be the baker.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What role would you want to play?
I don't know about a musical. I'm not much of a singer, but I'm a huge fan of Oscar Wilde. I was a theater major in college, and so I had opportunities to do a lot of shows. And when I wasn't Much Ado About Nothing. What was the name of the play? My memory's shot these days. It was.
Why is that? Are you busy or something?
No. Okay. So when I was in high school, I went to go see a play with my friend, my oldest, dearest friend, Kari, at her high school. And it was called The Importance of Being Earnest.
Yes.
And I would love to do that play. It is so silly. Oscar Wilde is just so amazing with language and misunderstandings, and it's so much. It's such a fun show, and the period costumes and everything. I would love to be in Importance of Being Earnest.
Well, that's great. Maybe we will. Maybe you'll see you on stage again someday.
Not anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. Well, thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me, babe.
And filling in for Nathan.
You're welcome, Nathan.
This will be the only time we record from this kitchen table in this home. The next one will probably be in our new office.
Oh my gosh.
That is just downstairs.
Our magazine house.
So I was going to edit this and get it out today, but some idiot packed up our coffee, and so I need to go shopping to get sandwich fixins and stuff for this last week.
Packing.
All right, yeah. Kat, go get some treats. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Talk at you next time.